It wouldn't hurt.
Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting of May 22nd, 2012. Thank the San Bruno Garden Club for the flowers they always provide for our meetings. I'd like a roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Connell. Here. Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Salazar.
Here.
And I would like to ask Fire Chief Haig to lead us in the pledge, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a few announcements. First of all, the annual Posey Parade will take place this next Sunday, June 3rd, the first Sunday of June, June 3rd at 1 p.m. And this year's theme for the 73rd parade is Education is Everything. Do you have anything to add? Lion?
For anyone that wants to participate, meaning children up to 14 years old, all you have to do is show up on Canes Avenue. Canes Avenue, bring your flowers, decorate or whatever, if you want to be ambitious and do a float, you can do that. There is no registration fee, there is no application, just show up at about noon, about 12:30 judging will start, and the parade starts at 1 o'clock. So eat your Wheaties and get a good night's sleep because it's a long walk to City Park. And hopefully I know we'll have good weather, and it'll be a great 72nd Posey Parade? 73rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, this next Monday is Memorial Day, and there's a wonderful observance that occurs every year at the Golden Gate National Cemetery. It starts at 11 a.m., and the theme this year is the price of freedom. And they have a flyover and speakers, and it's just very, very well done and very moving. So if you can attend, we'd like you to do that. Also, a very important announcement tonight. This is Chief Haig's last meeting. He's retiring. I know you don't want me to say anything, but I'm going to do it anyway. He is retiring, and we wish him very well. He will retire on May 25th after 33 years in the fire service. Chief has worn 2 badges, one for the city of San Bruno and the other for the city of Millbrae. And the Chief began his fire service career as an emergency medical technician in 1979 in Millbrae. He was promoted several times and ultimately became Millbrae's fire chief in 2000. In January 2008, at the retirement of the city's former chief, Chief Haig took on the additional responsibility as San Bruno's fire chief. Chief Haig will long be known for his outstanding leadership during the September 9, 2010 explosion and fire here in San Bruno. And we in San Bruno will continue to be proud and grateful for his service during the following weeks, and especially that terrible night. So we want to thank you, Chief Haig, and we are proud to know you as our chief, and we wish you a long and rewarding retirement. I know you're a man of few words, but would you like to share a few words with us?
Dennis is probably just being itching to talk.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, thanks for your kind words. In the Mayor's follow-up, I'll be brief. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the San Bruno community for the past 4 years. The City Council, both past and present, has always shown support to the fire department. The City Management team, led by Connie Jackson, has shown great teamwork, and it has been a pleasure for me to work with them. Last but not least, the fire department employees are dedicated and professional, which made my job easy. At this point, I think I'd like to introduce Chief Don Dornell from Central County Fire, who will be taking over as fire chief for the 3 agencies in the near future. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you and welcome to Chief Dornell, and we'll have a little something a little formal at one of our next meetings. So thank you very much. We have some presentations this evening. It's always fun. Present a proclamation to Julian Levy for tree planting in the Crestmore neighborhood. And I'll read this. Whereas Julian Levy led efforts to have over 50 trees planted in the backyards of more than 40 residences of the Crestmore neighborhood that was badly damaged by the gas explosion and fire of September 9th, 2010. And whereas these trees included a wide variety of ornamental and fruit trees, and whereas Julian raised the necessary funds or procured donations to provide the trees, stakes, straps, and other materials for this project. And whereas Julian contacted and recruited San Bruno Cub Scouts, 4-H club members, local students, and other community members as volunteer tree planters. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of San Bruno hereby proclaims its appreciation to Julian Levy for his efforts to help rebuild the Crestmore neighborhood and to make San Bruno a greener and more sustainable community.
I'd just like to say thank you for the proclamation. I really appreciate it. I want to thank all the residents for letting a random teenager barge into your backyard and plant a tree. I'd like to thank the city staff for supporting me and giving me guidance and kind of advice all the way through. And yeah, and thank you everyone for listening.
Good job.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add we met Julian at Arbor Day at Buckeye Park, and he helped plant some redwoods, and was soon to find out that he's a very ambitious young man, and he has part of a program of planting 1 million trees in Africa. And in addition to that, he's well known in San Carlos for planting trees at Flood Park, and so I wish you well and thank you for coming to San Bruno twice now and helping our community.
Thank you. All right, item 4B, and we're going to receive a presentation from Caltrain Joint Powers Board on high-speed rail alternatives.
Good evening. I'm Mark Simon, Executive Officer for Public Affairs for Caltrain, Samtrans, and probably 2 or 3 other agencies I've lost track of. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm here because a couple of weeks ago at your last meeting, we did talk considerably about 2 tracks and what it meant for the permanent station at your station, the Great Separation Project. And I thought after listening to what had happened there and conferring with your staff, with Connie, that it made some sense to come back and try and provide a little more context to answer any further questions and to address any concerns you might have. What we're talking about is, and if you've heard this before, I apologize, we've been doing a great deal of outreach to try and contact city councils throughout the peninsula to talk about this and what it may mean for them. We're talking about a blended system. You may recall the original proposal from High Speed Rail was to build a 4-track system the entire length of the peninsula, and actually the entire length of the state. That was not well received in many circles, sometimes vehemently so. About a year ago, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, State Senator Joe Simidian, and Assemblymember Rich Gordon proposed what they called a blended system. See if we couldn't use the current track infrastructure of Caltrain to build a high-speed rail compatible system that modernizes Caltrain, that stays substantially within the right-of-way and is essentially a 2-track system. So what we're talking about is an electrified railroad from San Jose to downtown San Francisco. That, in this case, that would be 4th and King. The extension beyond that to the downtown station would be a separate project that would support both Caltrain and high-speed rail, and particularly in key components. The signal system that we would install would be one that high-speed rail could use. The electric system, the transfer stations on the wayside, the overhead wire system would also be something that high-speed rail could use. All of which is by way of saying high-speed rail can help pay for this project. It is primarily a 2-track system, as we said, largely because there will be places where we want to implement passing tracks. That's a decision that is some considerable amount of time away from now. It isn't funded, and it hasn't even been designed. But we can't commit concretely to never building more than 2 tracks because we may not want to. We may want to do more at some point in the future. Why are we supporting the blended system? It's within the right-of-way. It is primarily 2 tracks. It doesn't require any additional track infrastructure. It eliminates most of the concerns that most of the people in these communities have had about the impact of the railroad reaching beyond its current boundaries and negatively impacting their communities. It's a lower project cost. It's $1.5 billion to deliver this project versus multiple billions for the larger project. And it means we can do it now, or relatively now, compared to waiting 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. What we did first was do an operational assessment. Could our current track infrastructure handle the kind of traffic we want to run for Caltrain and make room for high-speed rail? And the answer is that we can run up to 6 Caltrain trains per hour and 2 high-speed rail trains per hour with the current track infrastructure. That led to an MOU that I'm sure you heard about on the blended system. 9 separate agencies throughout the Bay Area supported this, are putting in funding for it, have supported our efforts to get funding for it. It's an anomaly. We have some of the largest transit agencies in the Bay Area pitching in to save Caltrain to do a modernization program. There's been a lot of concern among some people that Caltrain is the tail on the dog and that everybody else will tell us what to do. But in fact, the opposite is what's happening. It's $1.5 billion for preparation for Caltrain electrification and the advanced signal system. I referenced that earlier. The advanced signal system also includes positive train control. All of that means the trains can run more efficiently, can even run more closely together. That's a benefit we would reap immediately. Even if we don't electrify the train system, a better signal system allows us to run a better system. There are a second set of projects that are underway that aren't part of the blended system. That includes the downtown extension. That includes whatever plans high-speed rail may ultimately come up with for what they want to do on the peninsula, all of which would be subject to its own environmental review process and CEQA process. The passing track operations analysis, well, I don't know what that one means. There are 5 different options we looked at, one of which includes 5 different options for where we might put the passing tracks. I understand it now. I've read too many of these over the last, I'm doing about 4 of these. I have to go to Millbrae later and do a completely different one, so I'm having trouble keeping it all straight, and I apologize for that. There are 5 different places where we think we could put passing tracks. One of them is where San Bruno is, which is why that issue about 2 tracks, making the decision now to build go ahead with a 2-track configuration and building a permanent station has some risk to it for the city, but we thought it was a risk that we could explain was worth taking. I met with Council Member Ibarra before this came, before we made a more formal presentation to the council, and the way I described it is it's true, you're sort of betting that we will ultimately not choose to put passing tracks here, or that if we do, it's far enough away that it doesn't necessarily burden the city. Believe me, no one's more aware than I that this city doesn't want to go through any major construction projects anymore on its rail system, whether it's BART or ours. And that's certainly a sensitivity that we understand. I think sensitivity is not a strong enough word for how the council might feel about it, but we do understand that. The original design was to support 4 tracks. You may recall that was back when we thought high-speed rail would be ready to come right on the heels of our project, and therefore it could be 2 contiguous projects that would seem as though they were one. Well, I don't need to tell you that isn't necessarily the way it's been unfolding. High-speed rails run into their own set of problems. So our recommendation was, because we had to make this decision right now and because to build a 4-track configuration included tens of millions of dollars that we didn't have, we recommended that we go ahead with building the 2-track, finalizing the station, putting it where it's supposed to be, and hoping that nothing else needs to be done. If high-speed rail is ready to add tracks and complete a 4-track station, that's their project, that's their decision. They'll have to come to you and explain why they're going to do it, and we can certainly work with you in helping to understand all the ins and outs of that. So the current situation is high-speed rail is not ready. We expected them to be, and I think it's an understatement to say they're not ready. So there's where we are. The future construction in San Bruno is certainly up in the air, and I apologize for that. I wish it was different, but sometimes you just have to deal with things the way they are. So without any further blathering on, that was why I wanted to come here. I thought we owed you the courtesy of a better explanation and a more thorough context for what's going on. I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to any concerns.
Good. Not so much a question, but I know you're not able to predict way into the future, but I just want to let you know this evening that we are vehemently opposed to any more construction after this gets done, because our city's just getting torn up, and we don't want to have to do it more than once. Any questions or comments for Mr. Simon?
I think you said it pretty well.
I
Thank
do
you very much,
understand
Mark.
from your staff that you're preparing a letter that essentially makes that case very clearly, and I can't think of anything more appropriate for the city to do, not that you need my permission to do it, but believe me, you're not even the only city. Some have already written to us telling us they don't want 4 tracks either. So it's an entirely appropriate thing to do. And we've enjoyed an excellent relationship with your city. This is not going to affect that at all, at least not in our minds.
But while you're standing there, where are we with our so-called low-speed rail that's being put into our city now in the station and everything? How are we?
I understand that we're on schedule, that we're moving along. I don't know much more about it than that, to be honest with you. I'd have to find out for you. And
Okay.
if you'd like, at some point, Connie, we can come back and deliver a more thorough update on what's going on. But I am comfortable that it's moving along very well. Since you gave me the opportunity, I can't speak highly enough of the residents of this community. Their understanding of what we're trying to do, their acceptance of what we're trying to do, some of which has been very disruptive to them. They've been extremely generous in terms of their understanding of what we're doing and their reaction to it, and we couldn't be more grateful.
We
No, thank
feel
you
the
very
same
much.
way.
Yeah, we feel the same way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we do have one more presentation. We're going to receive a report this evening from Dean Peterson, San Mateo County Director of Environmental Health, on proposed countywide ordinance banning plastic bags. Dean.
Good evening. So Dean Peterson, Environmental Health, your Environmental Health Director. Back at the beginning, first I'd like to thank city staff for inviting me here to give you a brief presentation. The end of last year, the Board of Supervisors held a workshop, and after that workshop they gave direction to staff to look at a single-use bag ban, not only in the unincorporated area, but encouraged us to look at it on a regional basis. So the first thing we needed to do was, of course, to identify a draft ordinance so that we then could go on and do the environmental documentation. It was determined that we needed to do an EIR, so a full environmental impact report, mainly based on experiences in other jurisdictions that did not do an EIR. There was lawsuits, and so we felt that it would be best to give the policy makers the fullest ability to make those decisions based on a full-blown EIR. So the county committed to doing that. We then went to each of the cities within San Mateo County to ask if they wanted to be a partner on that EIR. Basically, become a responsible agency with the county being the lead agency. We also went beyond our borders and went into Santa Clara County and invited cities down there to also become part of the EIR. All told, we have 24 cities, 18 cities within San Mateo County. Those are 18 cities that have retail. The 2 cities that do not have retail are not part of the EIR, and 6 cities down in Santa Clara County have joined on the EIR. Because the Board of Supervisors feels that this is a regional issue, and it's something that really can only be addressed by keeping bags out of the bay and in the marine environment on a regional basis, we chose to mirror San Jose's single-use bag ban ordinance, which has been shown to be successful. It's been shown to be lucrative in that it does keep bags out of the environment. And so we are mirroring that. That's what the EIR study is going to model. And at this point, we did 7 scoping meetings throughout San Mateo County and Santa Clara County to get feedback from the public and businesses as far as what we should be looking at in the environmental impact report. Those have been completed. The draft environmental impact report should be out for public comment the first week or the second week of June, and it'll be for a 45-day period. Once that happens, we will then be taking the draft EIR and a final draft ordinance to the Board of Supervisors, I'm hoping by mid-October, for them to certify the EIR and have the discussion on the policy for the ordinance. If the Board of Supervisors passes that ordinance, then like other ordinances that San Mateo County has done within environmental health, we would offer up to cities to adopt by reference. So again, we could have a full regional impact onto it. So in order for this to happen, because what we don't want to do necessarily is if an ordinance passes, we really don't want to be in a position of having an ordinance pass and then having a year-long period before it goes into effect. So this summer and fall, we'll be working with the cities to do outreach to businesses and to the community, and that's the one thing that the county needs a lot of assistance on in the cities is we need the city's assistance to help us with the outreach. You know your businesses, you know your communities, you really know the people that we're going to be able to impact. So that's really what we're looking at. The San Mateo County ordinance, I anticipate, will be going into effect on January 1st of 2013, assuming the board passes it or soon thereafter. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good. Any questions? Irene?
Do you have some kind of template or something that was successful in San Jose for outreach to merchants that we could look at and maybe mirror?
Absolutely. We are looking at that right now. They did a very thorough outreach program. Currently, my pollution prevention program is putting together an outreach plan, and we're including cities in preparing that plan. Hope to have that to CCAG, because CCAG has shown interest in being part of this also by the end of June. So we're hoping to be able to roll out an outreach plan by June, July.
Great. Okay, thank you.
And is it also true that the major grocers are not going to be opposed to it? Would you go as far as to say that they would help in the promotion?
They will definitely help in the promotion. We've seen that in other jurisdictions. The California Grocers Association has indicated that by going regionally, it's as close to a support that they'll get, but they will be looking at this as far as outreach and helping with the outreach as much as possible.
Thank you. We'll look forward to receiving something a little more formal.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Item number 5, review of the agenda. I'd like to move item 11, which is the annual report of the Community Preparedness Committee, to right after item 8, public hearings. And then we will be removing items number D and E under the consent calendar, and we will reschedule these items for a future meeting, and I'd like the city attorney to give us a little overview as to why we're doing that.
Certainly, we do recommend the City Council postpone consideration of those items, which is water, wastewater, and the garbage rate ordinance adoption. As the staff report noted, there was a clerical error in the recital sections of those ordinances that mistakenly indicated that a 2/3 vote was required for introduction and adoption. Well, that's an error because the government code sections that are cited only apply when you're putting the rates on the tax roll, which we're not doing. So we've corrected them and changed them to refer to the correct government code section. But just so we're sure that we're meeting, if not exceeding, every possible legal requirement about introduction and adoption of those ordinances, we're going to put them back on a subsequent agenda for reintroduction, and then an agenda after that for adoption. And just so you know, there isn't a legal requirement that the city either hold a new public hearing or redo any of the protest procedures, because all of those were in fact done in accordance with the law. So that's the reason why we're recommending that.
All right, thank you.
These
These items have been pulled from the agenda, so if you want to speak on them, I would anticipate you could speak under public comment or wait until they're reintroduced at another meeting, okay? Thank you.
I can't stay till the end of the night. Is it coming up?
It's coming up pretty soon. Approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of May 2012. Any errors, corrections, omissions? Seeing none, they'll be approved as submitted. Consent calendar, all items are considered routine or implemented earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by council member, citizen, or staff. Action on consent calendar.
Move to approve items A, B, C, and F on the consent calendar.
Motion second on the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's see. To public hearings, item number 8. There are no public hearings this evening. And we'll move right into item number 11, which is the annual report of the Community Preparedness Committee.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor Ruane and council members. My name is Dina Gunning. I'm the chair of the Community Preparedness Committee. And it's with pleasure tonight that we deliver our annual report for the Community Preparedness Committee. We were there. There we go. Thank you. Our mission statement: the San Bruno Community Preparedness Committee promotes emergency preparedness, planning, and education to prepare residents to mitigate the potential consequences of natural and human-made disasters. This year's members: myself, George Paponis, Vice Chair, who's recovering from another knee surgery, so he couldn't be here this evening. Stephen Johnson wasn't feeling too well. Ron Lapidus, who is behind me here, and Mike Ward, also, that is here this evening. And Irene O'Connell, thank you, who is our liaison to the committee this year. We're with pleasure and also saddened that it's Chief Haig's last meeting this evening. He's been a great support to us as a committee. We want to thank him, and also Chief Telford for his support. Jim Allen is our fire marshal and fire liaison. Gary Carson, who has been our secretary for the minutes from fire. Tim Mahan, who's our new staff liaison for police, and Dennis Bosch was our staff liaison for public works. Our ex officio members this evening, we all know our friend and colleague Brian Mulver from OES, Walt Long, who is our liaison for the San Bruno Amateur Radio Volunteers, and we are still waiting to have the school district representative spot filled. Our accomplishments for 2011, we established the CERT program, the Community Emergency Response Team Training Program, and we have more information on that particular pilot program that we launched last year. We conducted also our first CERT drill at Shelter Creek, which was a huge success. Participation with our San Bruno Amateur Radio Volunteers, collaboration with the Crime Prevention Committee. We staffed information booths at the city and county events, our annual San Mateo County Preparedness Day. We also did Sears Preparedness Day this last year at Tanforan, and the Chamber of Commerce Business Expo at Tanforan. We provided emergency preparedness messages for San Bruno Cable TV in English and in Spanish this year, so we're proud of that accomplishment. This was our first CERT training at the fire station. It was appropriate. We had some hazardous conditions there for the moment. And part of the CERT training, we offer disaster awareness and preparedness, basic disaster skills, disaster medical course, light search and rescue, disaster psychology and terrorism, team communications, organization and management, and then we have the skills development and application, which is the hands-on exercise, which is the final component of the program itself. And currently, I'm bouncing back and forth because we do have a CERT session going on as we speak, and tonight's session is on disaster psychology and terrorism, so I'll be bouncing back down there after, which we've been hosting at the Recovery Center. This is from the tabletop exercise of the last year's graduation class, and going over the incident command system. These are photos of the light search and rescue on the hands-on exercise at the fire station. So the participants really were involved in the hands-on of performing light search and rescue. The fire suppression, where everybody has the opportunity to go in and actually suppress a fire and learn exactly what to do and how to do it, always using the buddy system, so they go in pairs. And this was our first graduating class. We had 45 participants in the pilot program at Shelter Creek last year. All of our committee members, as well as the residents from Shelter Creek, and it was a very good class. It was, they participated well, they enjoyed it, and it was a real success for the first program that we'd done. Oops. This was a picture of the first drill. Let's see, that might be one of the videos that we did at Shelter Creek on October 15th. So they actually, on top of doing the hands-on exercise as part of the CERT program itself, did an on-site drill at Shelter Creek where we utilized stations and everybody got to practice all of the stations from the different sessions of the CERT training. So there we have some of the participants at the first aid station. Let's see what's going on. We also had the police department come out and do a security demonstration. So it's their plan to use the basketball court in case they have some security issues to detain people. So they went over that. Light search and rescue as well. And then they actually made it a challenge. So there were teams, and the winning team who made it back to the completion circle first all received a disaster pack. We also did a lot of work this last year with Community Preparedness Committee in support of the San Bruno Amateur Radio Volunteers. Several of us that sit on the committee are also amateur radio operators. We convened our meetings at the San Bruno Resource and Recovery Center. We increased the member attendance at the meetings, and we also collaborated with the Millbrae Radio Club. We developed club bylaws, and we have returned our meetings now back to the Emergency Operations Center, where each month we meet and actually test out the equipment and are working on updating the guidelines and operational procedures for the equipment in the EOC. We also participated in Silver Dragon County Exercise in testing out our equipment and our communications with County Office of Emergency Services. And we're, as I said, updating the operational guidelines and instructions. These are the members that are part of the Amateur Radio Volunteers Club as well. Myself, Ron Lapidus, Mike Ward, Jim Allen is our fire liaison, and what I would consider an expert in amateur radio communications and equipment. He knows his stuff. And Walt Long, who is our radio club liaison, who really has kept the club going in the last couple of years over our transition. We also participated in Preparedness Day at the county fairgrounds, which many of you may or may not know has now been moved to June and is on the first day of the San Mateo County Fair, which actually has worked out quite well. I think the attendance is good and gives people an opportunity to park for free and actually attend the fair for free. So that's a nice incentive. We distributed preparedness literature. We registered San Bruno residents for the community emergency response training, and we displayed the CERT training videos from our pilot program. And Ron Lapidus also did a radio transmission demonstration for our amateur radio club. Our goals for 2012, to continue to promote CERT and community preparedness at city and county events. This year's San Mateo County Preparedness Day is Saturday, June 9th from 11 to 2. So we look forward to that. We are also in the works of planning our own San Bruno Preparedness Day that we would like to have here at the Senior Center, so much along what the county does at the county level, but for ourselves and locally here. We're also pretty pleased about the move for the farmers market to Tanforan, and we're looking forward to maybe setting up a booth in late August or so before we start the next fall CERT training to promote CERT. We continue to do CERT outreach to neighborhood watch groups, and we do have some participants in this last CERT session from neighborhood watch groups. And then we also would like to make the recommendation to City Council to promote the use of SMC Alert. And I have a few more slides on that for our recommendation to you. Update community preparedness on city website. We've done quite a bit of this on updating our posting of the committee minutes and agendas, but also wanting to look at updating the content itself and looking at creating a CERT page on the website as well. And exploring the use of social media to conduct community outreach to residents pertaining to preparedness. We've got so much at our fingertips these days that we really want to take a look at how we can best utilize our social media. And just wanted to ask, how many of the council is signed up on SMC Alert? Someone in your house is. Again, we want to make the recommendations that you go on smcalert.info and register so that you can get all the emergency alerts. And then, again, we want to propose to the council for us as a city to utilize this resource. And the committee would like to look at the following topics to actually address for utilizing SMC alert messages for basic emergency information, weather alerts, road closures, neighborhood watch alerts, burglary alerts, preparedness emails, and information and distribution. There's been several occasions where we've had road closures in the city, and I know I would appreciate it if I had that information ahead of time, because then you can use a different route. One being, I think the most recent was the top of San Bruno Avenue at Skyline for the repaving. So for those of us that go that route, we had to turn around and come back down. I think another was in the last couple years where we had the slide at Crystal Springs Road, when that road was closed for, I believe, 2 or 3 days. So again, it's good information to get out to the community so that we know how to go around those things. And I imagine with the Caltrain's upgrade project as well, that's another good opportunity to utilize that for that kind of information. And there are a few cities that are really using it well in emails, in crime prevention tips, and other avenues for getting information out when it comes to even events such as Clean Sweep and different things that you can get that information out to folks. Currently, there's over 2,500 registered subscribers in San Bruno. So that's a lot already. What we would like to do, of course, is if we utilize it more, then we can do the marketing and campaigning to get more folks signed up. And there's over 25,000 subscribers countywide. And if you had any questions about that, we have Brian here, who is our expert on SMC Alert, who can answer any questions. And then just a couple events that are coming up. Again, Disaster Preparedness Day, Saturday, June 9th. And of course, we always are there and have a booth. We'll actually have Community Preparedness Committee as well as a CERT table this year. And then the Great California Shakeout is October 18th, 10:18 at 10:18 a.m. Just a reminder that you can go on their website, shakeout.org, and register and participate in the Great California Shakeout, which is the drop, cover, and hold drill statewide. And actually, there's quite a few other states now that are participating. And there's a wealth of information on that website that you can utilize. And questions?
Any questions of Dina? Jim?
Yes. First, congratulations. What a long list of accomplishments, especially CERT. As far as CERT, 8 weeks, 10 weeks?
It's 8 weeks. It's 7 sessions, including the hands-on exercise. It's about 22 hours total participation.
Is there any chance that it won't be on a Tuesday?
We would be willing to schedule a non-Tuesday if council wishes to participate, yes.
Ooh, that's a big commitment.
You can do it.
Yes, I know. I'd love to do it. Yeah.
We'd actually like to invite you. We have the exercise coming up on June 2nd at Fire Station 51. If you would like to come and observe, we're more than welcome to have you.
So I'd like to invite you to, if you wanted to have a booth at the Posey Parade with the other community committees also. But also, I think it's important that we do pursue the school district involvement, because the kids need to know, and the schools need to know what to do in an event. So I would encourage that to be one of the priorities as the next year comes along. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and the committee's continued commitment and your passion that you have for this. I also want to thank you for spearheading, as well as the committee, the CERT program. I believe it would not have had its first graduation in May of 2012 without you and the committee's backing, support, and staff's working collaboratively so that to bring that to San Bruno and to continue it on. I was able to stop by for a moment on the graduation day and was very impressed with their enthusiasm and participation and the commitment as you expressed the days and the hours. And I think that if we can get those things out and the other things that you've mentioned here with all that you do, then it will be a better town for it. So thank you.
Anyone else? Irene?
Mr. Ibarra and I were just commenting earlier how far this committee has come. I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, we attended a couple of meetings from the prior group, and they had wanted to disband because they couldn't think of what needed to be done. And we encouraged them not to do that because there was obviously a lot that needed to be done. And it's so wonderful to see you all of you, and your commitment to this. And I know the citizens of San Bruno will appreciate what you're doing, and hopefully from this and other advertisements get more involved as this goes on. So thank you so very much.
Michael?
We do have the fall session scheduled already as well for CERT, and that'll be at the end of, starting at the end of September.
It certainly is exciting to see this program growing. I remember when I used to sit as a liaison from the crime committee in the meetings, and we were trying to get those things started. It was a struggle at first, so it really is, it's nice to see it pay off. I was wondering about the SMC alert, if the city was interested in having local messages posted to that, what the mechanism would be, who we would we need a central coordinator for the city who would then feed the messages up to some other
Perfect
organization?
question, Michael. And actually, instead of listening to me, I'm going to turn that question over to Brian Mulver with County OES, because he's probably the best person to answer that.
I just got an SMC alert on my pager as we speak. It's someone just wishing me to have a safe week.
Oh, you set that up. Come on.
No, I didn't. Here. It's no setup. SMC alert is free. Every city, some schools, some special districts, all are using it in the county. In San Mateo County, our employees are asked to sign up for SMC alert on in one category for employees or staff, so we can contact staff in an emergency and let them know when to report, where to report, and it's a great tool. It does take one coordinator to set it up for your city, and a good place to put the person with the message ability is perhaps dispatch or the police department, where the watch commander would be operating 24 hours a day. There are some best practices that come with this too. We don't send messages to cell phones and pagers after 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. It's up to the city to decide when is appropriate. And we do email only after 9 p.m. Unless it's something urgent, that is a warning or an alert where people need to know what to do, how bad the danger is going to be. You have 25. I just checked the stats before I came today, and you're up to 2,538 subscribers countywide that would like information from San Bruno. And I wouldn't mind doing a test with you to demonstrate that sometime and get the feedback from the subscribers. And overall, we're down to 2,590 subscribers all over the county that are managed. The remainder there are at-large people, probably from Santa Clara County, San Francisco County, that want information from our system. But it does take one person to coordinate it. It would take a dispatch is a good place to put it, or with the watch commander for the ability 24/7 to do the messaging.
Good. Thank you. You had something else, Dina?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and again, congratulations, Chief Haig. We're going to miss you.
And Dina, as we always say here, there's a large portion of the city runs on volunteerism. People don't realize how many commissions, boards, and committees are out there that do tons of work that is just sort of in the background for a lot of it. You're in the forefront a lot of it because, of course, you have some classes that you can outreach to people, but a lot of this city runs on volunteerism, just like your committee. So please thank you again, and thank all of the members.
Thank you for your support.
Item number 9, public comment on items not on the agenda is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. please stand at the podium and tell us your street address.
Yes, Mayor, 973 Clark Avenue, Barbara Larea. Dear Mayor and council members, as you are aware from yesterday's phone call from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, which wrote and put Proposition 218 on the ballot, Proposition 218 legally and clearly dictates how water and sewer rates can be raised. I am hereby allying with one of the legal people from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. I'm not speaking for the whole HJTA, just the one person I spoke with, who recommends and requests that you make a motion to abolish the ordinance passed on May 8th and, if you desire, to start anew the whole process of raising the water and wastewater rates. As it was pointed out to you, the notice of proposed increases to the City of San Bruno's water and wastewater rates is allegedly illegal and that it is a violation of Proposition 21 of the California Constitution. Specifically, may I call your attention to these words, quote, "If you wish to file a written protest, please send a letter or postcard addressed to," city's address, quote, "your letter must identify the property you own by county assessor's parcel number or street address, the owner of the property, and it must be signed by at least one owner of record." These words are in violation of Proposition 218 of the California Constitution in that they allow only the owners of a property and not a renter who pays the utility bill, quote, ratepayer, to protest. Proposition 218 clearly states that property ownership shall be deemed to include tenancies of real properties where tenants are directly liable to pay the assessment, fee, or charge in question, end of quote. Quote, that the tenant would have the right to protest. Under the foregoing, water service is the quintessential property-related service, end of quote. In the beginning of my signature gathering, I did receive and turn in a couple of tenant signatures because I thought it was how the law was written. Then I was told by our wonderful staff that I can only turn in owner signatures. From that point on, when I collected signatures, I only asked the person if they were an owner, and if they said no, I told them city said I couldn't turn these in. The city was warned that this owner situation is against Proposition 218, and we ask that you get rid of the ordinance that you voted on May 8th, come back with a whole new notice of proposed increased warning, and do another public hearing. Actually, the vote that was taken on May 8th shouldn't have even taken place because the thing was illegal to start with because the notice is not legal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rico.
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. I'm a new member on the San Bruno Chamber of Commerce, and I just want to thank you, Mayor Rain, and Councilmember Medina and Salazar for participating in the grand opening of the every Sunday now farmers market at the new Tanforan shopping center fronting El Camino, and I hope all the San Bruno residents in neighboring cities will come out. We look at it as expanding a little bit bigger than it was this last Sunday, and hopefully we'll only be making improvements and we can be able to run all the way to November, and then we can look at next year. So thank you all for your assistance.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Item number 10, conduct of business. Appoint a citizen to the city's Cultural and Arts Commission. Looking for nominations.
Through the chair, I'd like to nominate Pamela Madden.
I'll second.
All right. Motion second. Is there any other nominations? All those in favor of Pamela Madden?
Aye.
You're in, Pamela. Thank you very much and congratulations. You're going to have a lot of fun with that one. We're doing a lot of exciting things with culture and arts these days. Item 10B, receive report on education and enforcement activities for the 2012 fireworks season.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, this evening the police chief and I are here to update the City Council on the planning activities by the police and fire departments for the 2012 fireworks season and seek the Council's approval of the proposed educational and enforcement program. The City Council has directed staff to raise community awareness of the risk involved with fireworks use and to strictly enforce violations of illegal use of the city's zero tolerance program. The demand placed on fire and police resources typically increase not only during the holiday, but also in the preceding weeks. The fire department will take the lead in educational outreach efforts, including public education messages in the summer edition of Focus and cable TV. A joint effort with the fireworks industry will provide information to all elementary, middle, and high schools in San Bruno. There will be a mandatory meeting on June 5th with fireworks industry and the 17 community organizations that are requesting to sell safe and sane fireworks. This meeting is conducted to review the regulations, safety requirements, and timelines related to the sale of fireworks. All these organizations have paid their respective fees by the deadline. The estimated cost of adding an additional engine company and possible additional staffing prior to the holiday is estimated at $16,000. The additional resources will depend on weather, fuel, and activity conditions prior to the holiday. We will also consider adding staff and station them in higher risk areas if warranted. At this point, I'll turn it over to Chief Telford to provide the law enforcement.
Good evening, Mayor and Honorable Council. For the complete police component, we'll again have an officer visit those areas where we received high frequency and high complaints of firework violations, and this will occur prior to the 4th of July. We'll be reminding these areas that we are doing a strict enforcement policy and that violations can face fines up to $1,000. We'll also be conducting firework enforcement, so we'll have units out on patrol strictly for firework violations pre-4th of July. All department personnel are expected to work on the 4th of July with the exception of those on a 40-hour block of vacation. We'll also be bringing in additional staff from 2 allied agencies to enhance our enforcement effort. So we're going to have our officers on patrol handling emergency calls and regular calls for service, as well as enforcement teams that are specifically going to target firework violations, and that'll include use of dangerous and illegal fireworks, as well as the misuse of safe and sane fireworks. Again, as previous years, officers will take strict enforcement action on violations that they witness, and as you have directed us, both police and fire are well aware that we need to pay particular attention to the 4th of July. Each year we bring you our enforcement and education campaign to ask you to bless it, but we also bring it to remind the public that we're out there in force and that we want everyone to have a safe and sane 4th of July. Our efforts haven't gone to the wayside. We looked at numbers 10 years ago, and we looked at numbers that we did last year, and we've had about a 60% reduction in that 10-year time of complaints of firework violations. But we're well aware that our work is not done. We have still a lot of hard work ahead of us. So we're here tonight to tell you that we want to continue our efforts. We want to continue to try and reduce the use of illegal fireworks and the misuse of safe and sane. So the estimated cost of the proposed education and enforcement campaign is $65,500, including public works costs attributed to cleanup. The costs associated with the 4th of July campaign are reimbursed from assessments that are done from those agencies that are selling safe and sane fireworks. The recommendation before the City Council will once again allow the fire and police departments to continue our education and enforcement efforts and allow Public Works the additional resources they may need for the cleanup of the 2012 fireworks season. And that concludes our presentation. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Good. Any questions of the chiefs? Ken?
Just, I know it's a great program, and I know you go to the schools and inform them. If we can do, and I know we do a lot of public service announcements too, but the basics are just letting the public know when we'll, even though the booths are up, but we do have restrictions on when safe and sane fireworks can be used. And so if we can make that as clear as possible, and then just the strong emphasis that any other, illegal fireworks are not allowed at all.
So the focus article that's coming out will have the regulations regarding Safe and Sane. And the booths also hand out information sheets with every sale of Safe and Sane advising what those regulations are. And you're exactly right. Cable TV will be gearing up for those public service announcements that'll take place the weeks before 4th of July.
I believe that the fireworks companies can probably do some sort of signage also instead of depending just on the, us handing out flyers and stuff. But if we can, they've got all their advertisements all over their booths. If they can devote just something very clear, to passersby and to people that are purchasing that, these are the basic days, these are the days and the times that you can and cannot. I mean, hopefully they'll be, receptive to that.
We can make that recommendation at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you, and good luck. Hopefully it's on a Wednesday this year, so maybe it'll be a little quieter. So we're hoping anyway, so to speak. Thank you very much. Item number C, 10C, receive a report and adopt a resolution changing the name of Susan Drive to Pacific Bay Circle for the segment of roadway through the Pacific Bay Vistas apartment complex, and changing the name of Susan Drive to Highland Drive for the segment of roadway which fronts the apartment complex to the north and connects to Sharp Park Road.
Thank you and good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I believe this is a project everyone on the City Council knows well, formerly known as the Treetops Apartment Complex, now known as Pacific Bay Vistas. This is a 300-unit apartment complex that was originally constructed in 1985. After sitting vacant for a number of years beginning in 2005, renovations began and are now moving rapidly. The clubhouse is now almost fully constructed, and the first 2 buildings of the 13 buildings that are on site are nearly complete, and the first residents will be moving in August, and construction on the entire project will be completed next summer. With that as the backdrop, this is a request that came via the developer. As the council knows, Susan Drive is a relatively long roadway that begins on the southern end on College, goes and parallels Skyline till it runs through the Pacific Bay Vistas apartment complex, and there's this kind of snake road that goes down to Sharp Park Road. What the developer is requesting is that the portion of Susan Drive that runs through the apartment complex be renamed to Pacific Bay Circle. In conjunction with this, staff is also recommending that Snake Road be renamed to Highland Drive, as it connects to Highland Drive there, and it just makes the most sense from a continuity standpoint. The police department, fire department, community development, public services, we all reviewed this. And from an emergency response standpoint, it actually makes sense to name this Pacific Bay Circle, as Susan Drive is a long drive, and emergency responders will know exactly where they're responding to when they get a call for this location. Although it's not required by law, we know that the neighborhood, there's a lot of sensitivity around this apartment complex. There's a big impact to the neighborhood, and neighbors use this roadway on a day-to-day basis to get to different areas of their neighborhood. We have received no response to this. We generally thought people would have 2 concerns. Number 1, will the roadway remain public and will it remain open? The answer to that is yes. The name change would have no effect on the public's ability to go from point A to point B. The second, people are always concerned with name changes, is it will affect their property, and the answer is no. This will affect no other properties other than the Pacific Bay Vistas apartment complex. Regarding next steps, if the City Council chooses to adopt this resolution, the building official will distribute the information to a number of different agencies, everything from the emergency dispatch to the post office. The developer will be responsible for any GIS mapping changes that are required, or any hard copy map changes that are required as well. So with that, I could take any questions.
Any questions of staff? Any action?
Through the chair, I would like to introduce the resolution for adoption.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell. Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item 10D is adopt a resolution approving installation of a new 10-foot no parking zone on Genevan Avenue, beginning at the northeast corner of the intersection of Genevan and Cypress Avenues.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, good evening. This item was initiated by one resident residing on Cypress Avenue. The concern raised by the resident was the limited sight distance at the intersection of Cypress and Genevan, mainly raising the concern about movement on South Cypress. And of course, you want to see the map also. The main concern expressed was for the movement on South Cyprus and the possible conflict with west direction on Genevan. Based on the concern raised by the resident, staff followed up with a analysis and field assessment. After the analysis, staff concluded that the existing site distance is around should be 280 feet for any left turn movement and about 240 feet for any cross movement, and the existing site distance is around 200 feet. Considering the low speed on both on Genevan and Cyprus, which is 20 miles per hour at this location, and also the accident history for that location, which is 3 accidents in the last 3 years, which were not side distance related, and the high premium for parking for this area, staff recommended no action to the TSPC for this issue. At the TSPC meeting, 6 residents showed up. Those residents who showed up at the TSPC meeting did not support implementation of or additional limitation of the parking and the implementation of red curb. Based on the discussion at the even if the TSPC agreed and supported step assessment on our recommendation and on the facts, based on concern raised by some of the residents about the safety at this intersection, they wanted to come up with a some kind of improvement of the safety at this intersection. Reason why they were looking for some minor improvement, some kind of improvement of safety at this intersection. Based on the discussion, they came up with the recommendation to implement a 10-foot red zone at the northeast corner of Genevan, minimizing the impact on parking in this area. And that is the recommendation what you have before you for your consideration. This 10 feet red zone at that corner will have a minimum impact on the parking in that area. This afternoon, staff went out to re-verify that typically one truck is historically parked at that location, and just verifying the distance where the truck is parked versus where would be the 10-foot parking restriction, and certainly the distance between the curb and the truck is more than 10 feet, is closer to 16, 17 feet. That the parking would have a very limited impact at this location. I am, this concludes my presentation if you have any follow-up
Okay.
questions.
Any questions, staff? Okay.
So, where do you measure the 10 feet from? I mean, I think I caught that. I mean, because I know it's a rounded.
From the edge of that rounded portion.
So you have the handicap ramp.
Correct. And from the edge of the handicap ramp was measured the distance back on Genevan.
Okay. So roughly where that truck, where we've witnessed where that truck is more than 10 feet
Correct.
from that measurement.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Action by the council? Oh, you're going to speak? Please. Step to the podium, please. And just tell us your name and your street.
Sure. My name's Christina Gogol, and I live at the property that the red zone is proposed to be installed. My husband and I, Frank Sedano, we oppose any length of the red zone at that location, any length. Parking in the neighborhood is already greatly limited. The community would be better served with a stop sign. Unfortunately, the stop sign study that was done in July of 2011 was done during the summer months where the traffic is less. It should have been studied again. It should be studied again when the schools are in session because there is definitely an increase of traffic that travels on Genevan at that time. And the 3 months in summer, there is a decrease. The initial complaint that was made about having a visibility problem there was done in November, and that's when schools are open. The 2 accidents of the 3 at that intersection I actually witnessed, and both of them involved vehicles that were traveling the opposite direction. They were traveling eastbound. So there wasn't even, I know that was stated that that wasn't the issue with that side, but it would better serve that intersection if we had a stop sign, but going both directions on Genevieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Irene?
She did good.
I happen to
She
live.
did good.
I happen to live on Acacia, 1 block east of the exact same area, and I know how difficult it is to get out, in and out, and the site, the view is from both sides. You can't see who's coming down, you can't see who's coming up, and you just have to be very, very cautious. I don't know if a 10-foot red zone there is going to solve much. If they get it, I want one. So, and then I'm sure people up and down are going to want one, and then it's just going to compound all the other problems we have. Did anyone reach out to the person who parks the big truck there? And oh, it is you. Do you have any?
No, if you're going to respond, do it at the podium, so because you're on TV. So yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
We're passing around a photo I took, and it shows
okay.
your truck. Yeah.
Okay, so.
I'm sorry I interrupted your question.
No, that's okay. I guess I'm not sure what a 10-foot red zone would accomplish. I understand why people would feel better with one, but I don't think it's going to accomplish much. That whole Genevan Avenue and its stop signs and the parking and everything needs to be looked at instead of a piecemeal thing. So that's just my comment on it. But thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Frank Sedano. I'm the owner of the red truck. The reason why the red truck's parked there is because when we parked it around the corner, then we couldn't park our other 2 cars. Our driveway doesn't have a spot to park the other car, but that's really not the question. What I was going to say is that by the stop sign being there, if you look down by Allen School, there's a stop sign at Allen School, and then there's the 1 block going up that doesn't have a stop sign. Our block doesn't have a stop sign. The next block doesn't have a stop sign, and then there's the next block up there that has a stop sign. If you go up Genevan, it's like every 2 blocks does, and we're the 4 blocks. So when they take off from Allen School, they're hitting 3rd gear by the time they come flying past our. So coming out there really does, whether it's my truck, somebody else's truck, whatever it is, they're in full speed ahead going to the next stop sign when they go by. So that's why we're suggesting more of the stop signs to keep it in, it'd be the natural progression of the stop signs.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rico. I was just going to ask. I love these topics. Ken, like back home. The stop sign's been asked, and the staff is reasoning for not. It probably doesn't meet some criteria, but could you let us know as to why?
A stop sign study was conducted last year based on another request at that time, and based on that stop sign study, this intersection does not meet the warrant, and was discussed with TSPC, and TSPC agreed with staff recommendation not to install a stop sign at that location.
The question came up about the time in which it was studied, in school session versus out of school session, and the drop of traffic.
Based on so big difference between, yes, can be a difference between the traffic volume during school versus off-school season, but based on the volume difference between those two intersections, Cyprus has, during the peak hour, less than 10% of the volume on Genevan. Even if, let's say, during the school, that would be a little bit higher, even then this intersection would not warrant any stop sign. But if it's your desire, this study or the intersection study can be repeated during school season, if that is your desire.
And I appreciate that. And I just as a suggestion for myself is that when we are studying areas near school, I think we need to take that in consideration, that we do study them at the highest peak possible, because obviously with school in, school out, and that being so close. But it does pose, as Councilmember O'Connell said, is that going down Genevan and a lot of these without the stop signs, you do have some of those distance issues. Obviously, we saw the truck, so that causes maybe a greater problem. But is that 10-foot red curb actually going to make that significant difference there opposed to other places? Is kind of a question I'm wrestling with as well.
Our initial recommendation was to take no action, and that was a right course of action in our opinion at that time. Still, in our opinion, the 10-foot red zone will not really make any big difference, but certainly the residents and the TSPC felt that they tried to do some degree of improvement, and they felt that this 10-foot red zone maybe will improve the visibility, making sure that no vehicle will be parked closer than 10 feet to that intersection, even if the existing truck, how I said before, will is parked further away than 10 feet.
Anyone else? Yeah. Michael?
It sounded like you said that initially the recommendation was not to do anything, and then the 10-foot was sort of a compromise. Thank you. A compromise, so that it can, so that something could be done to alleviate the issue there. But I'm wondering if it's not really going to improve the site visibility, and I think the report said that it would probably be a lot longer of a red zone that would be required to give the adequate visibility. Was the speed of the cars on Genevieve, does that traffic, was that a factor in determining what that length of that required length is? And is there any issue with speeding on that street that aggravates the situation?
It's no complaint. Wasn't the speeding on Genevieve really wasn't part of the complaint. You know very well that this is a flat area of Genevieve with reasonable good visibility at this location. And how was said before, you have a stop sign 2 streets further east and west from that location. You already have many stop signs on Genevieve. Based on our studies, any additional, or certainly at this location, additional stop sign at this location would not improve the situation.
And we're, in this picture that we're looking at right now, we only see the 2 intersections. But if we were to look at a broader area, what does it look like? And I live not too far from there. But if you were to keep going up Cypress, are there opportunities within there? I know that there's some curves that come in up there that kind of, I mean, it's not as angular as it looks in this picture, but I'm wondering, are there opportunities for people to maneuver around and come out at a different intersection that might be a little more, I don't know, friendly to crossing?
Genevieve, you have to cross Genevieve, and this is a very safe intersection relative to any other intersection. This is a low-speed road boat. You are talking about 25 miles per hour.
Well,
and considering the geometry of this intersection is relatively safe versus the other intersection in that area, which has more angled intersections.
Well, I know that the school district offices are only a couple of blocks down, and they actually have there's a big lawn area in front of there that actually helps with the visibility as you pull up to that intersection. So what I'm wondering is, do the people that live in that neighborhood have an opportunity to get out and reach the other streets, or are they locked into coming out at this point?
I can answer that.
I can.
Since I live there. No. I mean, you can go to Canes and go around, but eventually if you're crossing, yes, you can, I should take it back. Yes, you can go to Canes and go up to Oak or left on Elm, and those both have stop signs. So yes, you can do it that way.
You could.
In my experience, the problem from my experience going across from Acacia is the cars coming, they're eastbound, they're coming down, as the lady was saying. There's a stop sign at Oak, and then as they leave that stop sign, they kind of gun it and come, it's like a nice little roller coaster effect down to Elm, and that's the next stop sign. So you do, especially when school is in session, between 7:45, because I took my kids to school, between 7:45 and 8:10, you take your life in your hands trying to cross Genevieve, going right or left. And I don't know what the solution is. Either we can make it like Crystal Springs and have no parking on there, which I don't think will last very long. If we put stop signs at every single cross section, you're going to have people who run them anyway, and then people who think they're going to be stopping are going to get squished because those people don't stop. I don't know. I don't know if we should look at the whole of Genevieve at some point and see if there's solutions that work for the whole length of Genevieve. But that's my input.
No, thanks, Irene. I appreciate that. And my point was that there are some decisions that people can make when navigating through those streets. And I know that there are intersections that are easier for me to cross, and I tend to know where those are. And rather than making a token gesture that may not have any impact, maybe we should be looking for a better solution, or
maybe a more holistic.
A more holistic solution. Thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to find that word myself.
Why don't we plead with the drivers? I've got a real problem with some drivers in this community because you put up stop signs at every intersection, they're still not going to stop. I stood here, I'm 6 years on the Traffic Safety Committee, and I go out there with an open mind and I stand there or I sit there and I just watch. And living in this community for almost 30 years, I know Genovan, I know all these cross streets, and it's not the corner. It's beyond, it's the fourth parking space, because, yeah, you can pull out, you can have 10, you can have that false sense of 10 feet of safety, and you pull out and there's that car that you didn't see. I think we got a resident here who's mindful of the situation and gladly doesn't have a large truck that really blocks the view. I've got this picture and I looked at it and I go, I see no problem. It's nice that you park there, but even if you did park up to the corner, my main concern is beyond that tree, looking east. And I think if you do something here, you're going to have you have some other issues once you start going up the hill, because then you have elevation changes, you have cars that are canted and speeding up and trying to gun it to get into the intersection because they're sitting on a hill. So I'd be in favor of looking at it, studying it more, whether holistic is what it's about, but yeah, I realize that this community was built way back when, and cars are, are more plentiful, and drivers are not paying total attention all the time. But I don't think the red curb is the answer here.
Okay. I agree. 10 feet is 10 feet, and it's like a token just to for appeasement, let's just put it that way. I mean, if you're going to do red and just don't let people park and let people have a clear view, but that's not going to happen because everybody has 3 and 4 cars nowadays, and there's no way to restrict that, and a lot of people don't use garages, they use the street and the driveways, and so it's a real issue. So having said that, would anyone like to introduce the resolution for adoption? No one's willing to introduce the resolution for adoption, so I think we send it back to you and the Traffic Safety and Parking to, as we said, come up with a more holistic solution to this particular situation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, item E. Gonna get this done. Received an update on the results of the Crestmore Neighborhood PG&E Pipeline Questionnaire and provide direction to staff for decommissioning of line 132.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Harry Burrows, and I'm the city's project manager for the Crestmore Reconstruction Project. On April 24th, staff gave a presentation to the City Council on options for the abandonment of PG&E's line 132 through the Crestmore neighborhood. At the conclusion of that presentation, staff was directed to survey the residents to garner their thoughts on the various options for the pipeline through the neighborhood. So staff developed a simple questionnaire that was sent to all 374 residents of the neighborhood. The 3 options and their impacts were described, and just to remind everyone, the options were, number 1, to fill the pipeline with the cement slurry. The second was to remove the pipeline in its entirety throughout the neighborhood. And the third option was what we called a hybrid option, and that was to fill a majority of the pipeline with cement slurry, but to remove certain sections that were in areas that were least disruptive to the neighborhood. So the overall results of the survey, we received 169 surveys as of last week. Some more have trickled in since then, and I'll address those in a second. That represents about a 45% return rate of the surveys, which is pretty good. So neighborhood-wide, there was 79% of the respondents that chose to fill the pipe, with 10% removing the pipe and 11% optioning for the hybrid. We also took a look at a smaller sample of the folks just along the pipeline alignment. And that's what the chart on the right-hand side represents. And the results were fairly similar. 72% of those respondents chose the filling of the pipe option, with the removing 12% and 16% opted for the hybrid. Since last Thursday, when we published a staff report, we've received 7 additional surveys, 5 for filling, 1 each for the removal and 1 for the hybrid. So obviously there's a majority of the respondents preferred the filling of the pipe option. I think it's worth noting some of the comments that we received, multiple comments along similar lines. The most prevalent comment was, fill the pipe, we don't want any more disruption to the neighborhood, minimize the disruption if at all possible. There was another comment from several folks regarding choosing the least expensive option. Don't waste any more money up there on the PG&E pipeline. And while we don't want to waste anyone's money, I think it is worth pointing out that the cost of removal, filling, the abandonment in whatever fashion will be 100% borne by PG&E, not by the City of San Bruno. There were also several comments to do nothing. Why are we even considering filling the pipe? And again, we responded back to several of those respondents directly, and let them know that the current industry standards within the pipeline industry for abandonment of pipes, particularly within urban areas and streets, are to fill the pipe with something. Don't leave them empty. The concern is that they'll corrode in the future. The roadway or other material can get into it, create a sinkhole. It becomes a public safety issue. And lastly, some of the comments related to removing of the pipe were, remove the pipe. Yes, we've had a lot of disruption, but we can live with more disruption as long as that pipe's out of the ground. Some of the additional concerns that you, the City Council, raised on the 24th included questions regarding the composition of the pipe, not only the pipe that's 1956 pipe, but also the 1948 section of pipe that we talked about. And we posed that question back to PG&E. PG&E did give us a chemical composition of the metallurgy. There is no lead in that steel pipe. It's pretty standard high-strength carbon steel pipe. Another concern that was raised was related to minimizing the odors when the filling operations occurred. PG&E did submit a fairly substantial procedure that went above and beyond what they had done previously in the neighborhood. It involved, or will involve, additional odor mitigation measures, including deodorant tanks, double charcoal filters, and tenting of the excavations. The excavations themselves will be tented, and there will be filters on any gas or air that escapes into the excavation tent itself. So, if the filling of the pipe option is the chosen option, staff will coordinate with PG&E to proceed in this manner. I wanted to take a quick second just to talk about the current activity that many have seen up in the neighborhood during this past week. PG&E and their contractors have been doing potholing to locate the end of the 1948 pipe section. As we discussed last time, PG&E believes that that pipe is, at least the section of it, is filled with some sort of liquid, water primarily. They are going to locate the end of the pipe, then in another operation come back with the odor mitigation procedures in place, open that pipe, take a sample of that liquid that's in the pipe, send it to a laboratory, and if no contaminants are found in that liquid, then they'll proceed with a filling operation. If contaminants are found, then they will be required to do a mitigation plan on how they're going to handle those contaminants and dispose of them, mitigate them. If the filling option, concrete filling of the 1956 pipe is chosen, we'll coordinate with PG&E to make sure that that pipe and the 1948 pipe get filled concurrently so we minimize the disruption to the neighborhood. So with that, that's my presentation.
Harry, two things. Is the composition of the 48 pipe and the 56, 58 pipe the same?
Yes.
Okay. And then what kind of outreach is going to occur before we start to see this filling going on?
Well, there will be a pretty substantial outreach that will be done, including obviously some direct mailers. We'll post it on our website, our Rebuild Crestmore website, as well as we've been in discussion with PG&E, and we'll need to, have more discussion to work out the details. But there will be some neighborhood meetings and other public meetings to make sure that everyone is well aware of what's going on.
All right. And when could this start, and when would it be contemplated to be finished?
Well, the filling, based upon the schedule that PG&E has given us previously, the duration of that overall project is about 3 weeks. Might be a further complication depending on what's encountered in the 1948 pipe. So if no contaminants are encountered in the 1948 pipe, that operation could start probably within 4 to 6 weeks would be my best guess. And it could be wrapped up in 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Rick, go ahead.
It was just on that, the sample that needs to be taken and tested, how long would that process take? So what, do we go out tomorrow, they take the sample, they get it off, it comes back? Is that a 2-week, 3-week, 1 month to have that analyzed?
Sampling of the liquid is probably less than a week process.
Okay. Thank you.
Harry, the whole section that gets filled in, obviously there's one end and then there's another. And I know there was a question as to how that connection would be handled. And just confirm that in the entire length there's nothing else that's intersecting or connecting to that pipe, that transmission pipe. It is just a clean, straight transmission pipe from one end to another.
Yeah, PG&E has told us that for the entire length of the pipe that's been decommissioned from the San Andreas station to the Healy station, that's been completely purged and is free of all gas.
No connections to anything else along the way.
And no connections to any live gas line.
Okay. And so there'll be some sort of major cap or something at each end?
Yeah, those caps have actually already been put in place, both on the section of pipe that's been cut as well as at each station on the stubs that were left out of the station to the line 132.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
Through the chair?
Michael.
I could. Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understood was in the report that we got back from PG&E, there was a specification that was created when the pipe was ordered, but not necessarily anything that would indicate that what the composition of the actual pipe that was put in, meaning that there were some minimal acceptable levels of certain materials that would be allowed in the pipe, but we don't necessarily know what the full composition of that pipe was. How certain are we that the material, that the steel in the old pipe is the same as the one in the newer pipe?
Well, I guess, we can never be 100% sure. All we can do is, look at the specification of the pipe that the contractor was directed or bid to place in the ground in 1948 for PG&E, and hope that the actual pipe that went in the ground did meet that specification.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we also know that at the newer line 132 was supposed to be seamless, and in fact it wasn't. So it is taking something on faith there. Is there any just search of historical records that we could do that would indicate what standard composition of steel was in the same year that this was put in, and find out if there was any possibility that lead was put into those pipes as practice during that time? I guess now that it's the potholing is done and it's been capped, I don't think we can go in and take a section and do the same level of analysis that the NTSB did on the other pipe. But maybe just a search of some historical records might give us some indication if at least there was a potential for that pipe to be somewhat different. And I should acknowledge at PG&E that we do appreciate the fact that you went and did the homework and provided us the report. I got to see the report, and it was very detailed, and I know that not all the records are available, and you did provide what you had, so I do appreciate that. when it comes time to do the testing of whatever material is in the older pipe, I would like to see just a description of what tests were done, and if those tests were specific to certain materials or if they're general and would uncover any potential chemicals that might be in that water, just so that we can provide that level of reassurance to the residents. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, the only other comment I was going to make is, I understand there's a lot of documentation to go through, a lot of analysis. Again, we've always said this is a road we haven't gone down. A lot of things we're learning for the first time. Is there anybody else that's assisting you or the staff in reviewing these and trying to analyze and, I'll use my term I like, the trust but verify?
Well, in terms of the metallurgical composition, I think one thing that we could do is the 1948 pipe. We know where one end of it is up in Glenview. That could certainly, I think we could ask PG&E to, cut off a piece of that, and that could be lab tested to verify its metallurgy. I think in terms of the laboratory testing of the liquid itself, we've been told by PG&E that will go to a lab and it will be tested full spectrum for everything. We can certainly independently test the liquid, or we can have an independent peer review done of those laboratory test results.
I think that's probably a good idea. We've gone this far, God knows, in the last 20 plus months with testing and reports and investigations. So I think this is relatively small in the bigger picture of things, and I think we'd feel comfortable knowing everything we possibly could.
Yeah. The other thing that I will add is that staff, the city has hired the firm of IMS, who is a gas pipeline specialist. They not only helped out during the initial deactivation process, but they are continuing to assist staff in analyzing PG&E's proposal.
I think, Mr. Mayor, just to close this out, and I know PG&E representatives are here, but this is still a very sensitive issue. And when this project of filling the pipe comes out, and no matter what mitigation efforts you take, whatever, as long as everyone knows that there are still some sensitive people, residents out there, and cannot take anything for granted, even though that's your livelihood, And so I would hope that you take those extra measures, and and I know we're taking our extra measures to make sure that we understand what's going on also.
So I think it's safe to say, unless I have objections, that the council agrees unanimously with the residents. Let's get it filled, and then provide the additional investigative information we want. Is that clear? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 10F, authorize a letter to Caltrain expressing the city's opposition to future construction of additional rail tracks following completion of the grade separation project. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Consistent with your direction at the last City Council meeting and your receipt of a second presentation earlier this evening regarding Caltrain's Joint Powers Board consideration of alternatives to accommodate high-speed rail should it be funded and become viable in the future. We have presented to you tonight a letter that expresses the Council's previously articulated strong opposition to future construction being contemplated in San Bruno after the completion of the grade separation that is currently under construction. The letter notes, as I believe it was of importance to the City Council, that this community has endured in a very positive manner a great deal of very significant transportation-related, regional transportation-related construction, both with the BART project in the early 2000s as well as the current grade separation project. Community, particularly in that and it's in exactly the same area, residents of San Bruno in that area, and indeed residents of San Bruno generally who travel through that area on a regular basis, have been significantly impacted and have been extremely patient and understanding, indeed supportive of these regional and statewide rail initiatives. So it is my understanding that it is City Council's desire that we weigh in on this current discussion to express the city's opinion that, in fact, we've done our bit, and that our support for Caltrain, for safe rail transportation, and for high-speed rail itself is well documented, and we believe should situate us to now make a strong objection to future construction-related impact in the city following the completion of the Great Separation.
Okay.
Just quickly, it's been very uncomfortable for us in the past years, especially with the controversy of high-speed rail, and and the elected officials in the state have listened to those other communities that are against high-speed rail, and I think we've quietly sat and supported, but enough is enough, and I think the letter's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We have authorization for me to sign.
If
Michael?
I could just ask one question. What is the potential impact of us taking a hardline stance with no additional construction through San Bruno anymore? Are we somehow maybe defining the course that high-speed rail, if it ever were to exist in California, may somehow bypass the peninsula because we refuse to participate?
I think that's a very interesting perspective, and based on everything that I think staff is aware of at the current time, the answer would be a very strong no, that we are not taking that risk, particularly because, as it has been outlined to us, I believe Mr. Simon said there were 5 alternatives for passing tracks. I thought there were only 3 on the peninsula, but San Bruno is only, or one that would impact San Bruno is only one of those. So there are other options. There may be additional strategies or means. There is currently also, as Mr. Simon indicated tonight, consideration of a rail operational structure that would potentially allow higher speed trains without passing tracks. So at this point, I think first there are a number of alternatives that are under early consideration, and that it is highly unlikely that a position of opposition by the city of San Bruno honestly would have any effect on the ultimate decision whether or not to move forward with high-speed rail. What it could affect, and we certainly would write this letter in the hope that it would affect a thoughtful decision process that would recognize what has been done in this community, and the fact that there may be other alternatives that could get stronger consideration in view of both our historic support for high-speed rail as well as our endurance of the construction-related impacts, our willing endurance of the construction-related impacts of the first step that would assist in the ultimate achievement of high-speed rail with the Great Separation. So that's a long way of saying I really don't think it is that there's a huge risk of sending a strongly worded letter, and I think that the the Caltrain JPB. I think Mr. Simon indicated tonight that there is an awareness and an understanding that San Bruno has been one of their biggest allies, and honestly has been quietly patient while, frankly, a lot of other folks have been yelling for probably less significant reasons.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I can tell you, if we didn't oppose it, if we didn't speak up, we'd be one of those alternatives up to the end.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I agree.
All right. So, do I have your concurrence? I'm going to sign that letter.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we need a.
No, we're good.
No. Okay. I'll drop by. Item number 11, we already had that. 12, comments from council members. We're going to hear a report from Councilmember O'Connell and her attendance at the San Mateo County Progress Seminar.
Thank you. I'll keep it really brief. I did go to several of the breakout sessions. It was one of the more interesting ones, and I'd like us to research this later, was called Greening Our Economy, and they presented and discussed ways to economize while complying with AB 32, which is the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Reduction Bill. And one of the examples that was presented had to do with how East Bay Mud uses the organics that Recology collects, and they take it to their solid waste water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and use that to help power the treatment plant. So it's a closed circle, and it was very fascinating. So that was worth the whole effort, and I have like 5 other pages, but I think that was the most interesting.
All right. Thank you for the report. Item 13, we're going to have a closed session, and it's going to be a conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives of the city manager, human resources director, employer organizations, the San Bruno Professional Firefighters Association, the Public Safety Mid-Management Bargaining Unit, the Miscellaneous Group Mid-Management Bargaining Unit, San Bruno Police Bargaining Unit, and San Bruno Management Employees Association. And finally, number 14, but before, do you have something to say, Mr.?
Real quick, and I'm sorry, I was going to just bring this up. There was a gentleman who lives in our town, Kai Hollenbeck. He participates in practices MMA, and I was given a invitation to go see him compete in San Francisco. He was actually
MMA. Is it a medical procedure, or is it
this is a form of kickboxing.
Okay.
Mixed martial arts kickboxing.
All right.
But he's born and raised in San Bruno, Cappuccino graduate, and he was actually the main event, shall we say? We use that term this week. And he actually won with the WMC Middleweight Championship. He's also won the WPC Middleweight Championship, 2 WKC Middleweight and Super Middleweight Championships. So I was unaware of the talent of this young man, and also now knowing better to give him a lot of respect and a lot of space. But again, it's just a San Bruno resident, born and raised, and Cappuccino graduate, and actually travels around the country fighting and defending and acquiring some of the titles that I've just mentioned.
Well, thank you and congratulations. Good. We're going to adjourn now to the next City Council meeting right here, June 12, 2012. Meeting adjourned.